Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alicia Gogan if you are new, and if you're new, don't forget to subscribe because it's a good time over here. I am going to be getting ready as we talk about one of the most important things that I have learned on my journey of becoming a woman, which is cycle syncing, which is planning my essentially entire life around my cycle, and how embracing this part of me, my infradian rhythm, has made me feel like I actually have control over my life and truly tap into a power that only us women have. So I'm gonna get ready real quick, and I wanna talk about a few things before we get into cycle syncing. I'm gonna go through the phases like I said, and then I'm gonna show you how I plan my productivity, fitness, how I eat, and just schedule my life around my cycle. So the other day, my best friend was talking about this emotional situation that she was in, and it took a lot out of her. And when she got back home from traveling, she just felt super exhausted. Her body, her mental state, her everything, she just wasn't really being productive with work. And she was also saying how there was another person in the situation who was a male, and he seemed to get right back into his schedule, right back into work with seemingly no issues when it came to exhaustion, and how she's just really starting to see wow, I really respond differently than males, but in general, why is it that I'm feeling like this? And now obviously we all respond to different emotional situations in different ways, and even males can as well. But she was also on the other hand being well, what do I do about this? What do I do about the fact that I'm super exhausted from being very emotional through this past weekend? And I said, the only thing that you should be doing when you are essentially emotionally exhausted is not trying to fix the fact that you are emotionally exhausted by changing it. And that is how we've been operating as a society, is especially when it comes to women. When we feel exhausted, when we feel emotional, when we feel low energy, we look for ways in which to be more productive or push ourselves through it or get up and go. But the more times we deny our needs, the more times we push past our body's actual language that it likes to speak to us in, the more we find ourselves in more exhaustion, more dissatisfaction, more unhappiness, depression, anxiety. And I was telling her how, we live in a society that is basically built for a man. And what I'll say is this: I am not somebody who is a man hater. I also don't live out my life as a very big victim of wow, there's systems in place and I have no power and I can't do anything. I don't like to operate in my life like that, because I just think that it disempowers me more than anything. This is not to deny that there's systems in place. This is not to deny that our world is basically built for a male's nervous system, a male's hormonal clock, a male's whatever. But the truth of the matter is for the most part, when it comes to work, when it comes to the way that we handle emotions, a lot of stressors in life, it is built for a male's nervous system, a male's hormonal clock. And so when we are emotionally exhausted, when we need to slow down because we're about to get our periods, when we are coming inwards and trying to transform, we find it more difficult to be able to support ourselves through this time, because we don't really have systems in place that allow us to come closer to ourselves and feel and emotionally release and take the time that we need. And unfortunately, what ends up happening is we turn on our own selves. We look at ourselves like we are the issue. Wow, my period is the issue, or wow, the fact that I'm emotionally exhausted is the issue. How do I fix this issue? You're not an issue. The fact that you don't have energy sometimes throughout the month is not an issue. We can support ourselves and we can see, all right, can I make sure that I'm capitalizing on my energy and it's not a burnout thing, and that I'm not ignoring my body, which we will talk about. But in general, we operate different than men. But on that same note, we don't need to demonize ourselves for it. What we need to do is learn how to support our bodies, our nervous systems, our infradian rhythm in a way that allows us to thrive in this life. And I truly believe we can still do that even as we are under the shackles of, you know, a male dominated system and this, that. I have learned, there's many women that have learned how to move through life in a different way. And I think that a lot of us are starting to learn that way, and not in the way of masking symptoms through birth control, or not in the way of placing demands on ourselves regardless of how we are feeling every single week. And I think the reason why it's hard for us to accept the fact that we are different, us to accept the fact that, okay, we need to feel our feelings maybe a little bit more, or we need time to rest, this, that, is because we look at it as we're losing. We look at it as we are not keeping up with society if we do that. We're not being, you know, more productive, and men are winning and we are losing, and you know, like we're losing. But you know what? This is what I said to my friend, and this is what really helped me be able to actually embrace being a woman and being different, and not look at it as a disability, not look at it as like I'm losing in any aspect, is this. And I like to look at it when it comes to emotions. And the reason why I'm talking about emotions, yes, men have emotions, but especially us, especially because our hormones and how it does play a role, we tend to fall on that emotional side sometimes. Not every single one of us, we're all different. There's a spectrum, but like we can just put ourselves in that category for the moment. When I, let's say, go through a breakup and I do not resist the breakup, meaning I do not resist my emotions, I let myself feel, I tap into sisterhood, I stop placing demands on myself, and I stop telling myself to get back up and be super strict on myself and be a tyrant the way that I've learned how to do to keep myself alive, which once served us doesn't serve us anymore. When I stopped doing that and just allowed myself to actually feel and embrace emotions, which can be one of the hardest things for us to do, but when you do it, you literally transform. And that's what I do every single time. But the thing is, when I do this, it's not this, oh my God, I'm feeling my emotions and like, yeah, I'm gonna accept myself and whatever, and then I go back to like regular life after I feel my emotions. I literally transform. I exponentially fly when I go through a rock bottom, especially when it comes to like either relationships, self-worth things, and even if it comes to like friendship stuff, like opportunities, whatever it is. When I really allow myself to go down and really like come to myself and let my emotions out and feel my feelings and stop like rushing the process, I am a completely different person when I come out of that. And I was even telling my friend this too, and she knows this as well. It's like when she went through her breakup and she got through it, oh my God, did she ever glow up in every single aspect of her life. And that's what happens to a lot of women, I find, when you go through something really hard, but you let yourself feel and you get that support and you do what you need to do and you move through that the best that you can and you love yourself through that process. You don't come out the person that you once were, you come out like a damn butterfly. And I personally do not think a lot of men really go through that process. Again, I'm not saying that men don't transform and change their lives, but again, like a lot of men sometimes don't go deep into the depths of their emotions in that way. And I honestly think it's my personal belief that they don't necessarily even have the capacity to go in that as much as we do, because we are different, just my personal opinion. So I feel like we're really unique in that way, is, you know, when we have to transform, when there's something going on in our lives and we listen and we stop resisting, we come out flourishing to the point where we're in this healed, aligned energy. But realistically, the energetic state that we come into is abundance. When I go low and finally come back out, everything comes to me. Better relationships, better money opportunities, better friendships, better X, Y, and Z, because I allowed myself to be in this death and rebirth, I should say. And witnessing that so much in my life and all of my friends that go through this, allowing themselves to heal, to rest when they need to come into themselves instead of resisting the process, I just always see such huge transformation. And that's why I'm not resistant to living a cyclical life the way that I used to, because you know, when I was really into self-development and I was really much so my masculine energy, like I didn't look at myself like really different than men. Like I also was like on birth control and like didn't care about my period and like didn't give myself time to rest or anything like that. And that created a lot of sense of control, I thought, by like doing the same thing every single day. Although it was really hard for me to do the same thing every single day, wake up with the same amount of energy every single day, even if I was on birth control. And so thinking about like, oh, some weeks I'm not gonna have energy, or like some weeks I'm gonna need to rest, like I wasn't really interested in doing that. But understanding everything that I do now, and especially understanding like the transformation that you can go through when you actually allow yourself to rest, I am no longer resistant to this idea of living cyclically. And I'm also not resistant to it because that is not only our actual biology, but realistically, life is very cyclical, even for men. But because we hormonally are also running cyclically, I just think that you might as well come closer into understanding what it means to live a cyclical life and see how that can help us move through the world. And I have found as a woman, doing this, cycle syncing, also just looking at life as very cyclical, has helped me reduce stress. It's allowed me to be more creative, more in flow, produce more productivity and work, and find the right people at the right times by not always expecting myself to act, be, and do, and think, and feel the same way every single day. The last point I want to make about embracing a cyclical life and embracing the fact that you're a woman is understanding your power and not trying to destruct that. And what I mean is this: the rise of the feminist movement was something we needed. We needed feminism. We needed women to fight for our rights and, you know, fight for our place in society. And it did what it needed to do. Like, we are literally so far beyond what we used to be, how we used to live in the world, access to every single thing that we deserve. But I think sometimes the pendulum swings a little bit too far. And I think some of the feminist movements, not all of them, obviously, some of them move to this, okay, well, we need our rights and we need to be acknowledged in this world and we need to, like, you know, be respected, which, yes, will just show you that we can do every single thing a man can do. We can do exactly what men can do. And I personally do not think that, because biologically we are different, but also we don't need to be exactly like men, because I actually think that we have different powers and we have different resources within us that men won't be able to tap into. That's my personal opinion. Some people have different opinions, but that's how I operate in the world. But with that said, I'm going to learn to understand my unique nervous system, my unique biology, my uniqueness as a human being outside of feminine, masculine, women, male, like any of that. I am going to look at what's the most unique and most powerful within me, and I'm going to express that in the way that I want to. I'm going to create a life that is supportive of that. I am not going to try and do what these men over here do. I am not going to also say that because I'm a woman, I can't work because I am completely opposite than men. I think that we have both masculine and feminine energy within us, meaning yes, we can work, and yes, we can be productive, and yes, we can do what men can do in certain senses, but the way in which that we do it is different based off of our biology, based off of the fact that we have cycles. And I think where the rise of the soft life feminine energy girlies come from is the response to the hyper feminist women who said we can do everything like a man can do, and then a lot of them are getting burnt out because they're trying to do and keep up with the demands of the patriarchal society and how it operates and how it really favors men's nervous systems and men's hormonal clocks. And then they get burnt out, then they get tired, then they get depressed, then they get all of these things because it's not supportive of our biology. And then rise of soft life, we don't need to work, we can't work, I need to rest, I need to relax, I need to just not. This doesn't mean there's not validity in the soft life community, but I think that it just ends up separating females and males, let's say, because now we have a group of people over here being like, you have to do all the brunt of the work and I'm not going to do anything and you have to pay for every single thing. And then some of these men are saying like, oh, well, because you're a woman and you need to stay at home, but like sometimes we don't want to stay at home because we have more than just staying at home and like raising babies. You know what I mean? So I think there is a war, as always, societal, civil, freaking political wars always happening. So I've been watching that, but I know what's true for me and I know what works for me. And I am also somebody who still resides in masculine energy, meaning I do work, I need to create structure for my life. I think that that's very healthy and we need it. But I've also learned how to mother myself. I've also learned how to love myself. I've also learned how to support my body in the way that it needs. And it's allowed me to get everything that I want in my life in an easier way. So with that said, I want to talk about our cycles. I'll quickly go through the phases. I do have a lot of videos regarding cycle syncing down below, but this is like an updated one. And then I'm going to talk about like planning your months and like your weeks in your life essentially around it. And then also I'm just going to show you like an example of like what I typically do when it comes to planning, because I am not very like particular with like making sure that I'm eating the right meals at the right times and like doing the right activities and the right movement. Like everyone's very unique, and you don't have to hyper focus on cycle syncing. It doesn't need to be this big overwhelming thing, and sometimes I think it can be very overwhelming because there's a lot of information, and also everyone's body is different. And also I'm going to say a few things before we start. One, I'm not a doctor, okay? So like, I'm gonna talk about this one book that I think is very beneficial for you to understand your cycle. Another thing, if you're on hormonal birth control, you take your natural ability to be able to go through your 4 phases of your cycle away. I still think that it's important for you to understand this, because most likely you didn't understand this when you went on birth control like I did when I was younger. But also I would suggest watching the movie, The Business of Birth Control, for you to understand what you're putting in your body. This is not to really, it's not about convincing the people who are on birth control to get off, and like it's not good for you, because I understand people are on birth control because they have PCOS or they have just like hormonal imbalances, they have acne and they really can't get it under control. And sometimes Western medicine can absolutely support you in getting to where you want, but I find this is what happens in the Western world. You have a symptom, here is a medication. We tell you that there's no cure for this symptom other than this medication, so you take that and you be on it for the rest of your life, but you're not actually getting to the root cause of what's going on. I personally believe there's always a root cause. I look at everything very holistic. I've healed a lot of hormonal inflammation, so many things in my body. I had really bad skin, which I will have a video down below if you want. Ulcerative colitis, hyperactive thyroid. I've had a lot of different health issues, and I definitely did lean on Western medicine to help my symptoms come to bay, because I understand that life is not all about always just like healing holistically. Sometimes you need that help from medicine or whatever, but I think that the best thing that you can do for yourself, whether you're taking birth control, whether you're on medication, is going deeper and understanding what's the root cause of some of my symptoms and how can I support myself even as I am taking any sort of medication, so that maybe eventually one day I could get off of it, or I can feel very confident that I'll be able to, you know, have a healthier life outside of medication. If that's something you want, and if you don't, then that's fine. But that's just my 2 cents on that. I was on birth control when I was like 15 years old, and then I ended up getting off of it because I just felt like it wasn't needed, and I didn't need it for anything really, even when it came to like being sexually active. Like I really stopped like indulging in hookup culture and stuff, so I wasn't really like, I didn't need it for that purpose. And then I just thought there's just no reason why I'm taking my natural cycle away from me. And this is all before I learned about cycle syncing. This is all before I even understood that we go through 4 phases every single month as women, instead of just one being when you bleed. Also, it's taken me a while to understand fully my cycle by tracking it, by understanding phases, by seeing what my body uniquely needs and what it doesn't really need, and where I need to support my body more. So just another like disclaimer, if you are somebody who is wanting to cycle sync and support your body through different phases of the month, like it's not gonna be like this thing that you just like get the first time. It can take a long time, and that's totally fine. I think that with anything, we just need to allow ourselves to learn, grow, and heal as much time that we need. We don't need to rush anything. That is the essence, I believe, of what actual feminine energy is relaxing, resting, giving yourself the time that you need to understand yourself more. Also, if you have an irregular cycle, this is also good information for you to learn. But I have been told that if you have an irregular cycle and you want to cycle sync, along with even being on birth control, you can cycle sync through the moon cycles. There's a full moon and a new moon. You can track whether you're bleeding or ovulating, but listen, I don't know how to track using the moon cycles. So I would just suggest to do your own research on that. But I would say the book that I'm going to talk about also does address some of the birth control or regular periods and stuff. I'm just going to quickly do this highlighter, and then we will open up the book to talk about the different phases, because I want to tell you what they are from the book. But there is a lot of information online regarding cycle syncing. So like, depending if you go on Pinterest and like pull up a infographic, there might be like, oh, your bleed should last 3 to 7 days. And some people say 5 days. So it's like, it's very dependent. So the book that I'm reading from is called In the Flow. I will have it down in the description. This is literally your guide to cycle syncing if you want to know more information in detail. So let's talk about the Infradian rhythm. The Infradian rhythm is essentially a 28-day cycle that we cycle through every single month as women, as long as we're not on hormonal birth control, which of course will take our ability to go through that away, or if we are pregnant. And if you have an irregular period, then your phases and your cycles might be a little bit skewed because obviously it's very irregular. But again, this is something still to learn and really be able to learn how to support yourself. This is all really about connecting to your body. Connecting to your body outside of even your cycle is just important that we do, especially in my opinion, as a woman. So the first phase that we have in our cycle is called the follicular phase. This lasts roughly around 7 to 10 days. I'm reading this from the book here. Around 7 to 10 days, and you can look at this phase as your spring phase, okay? The reason why we call it our spring phase is because the phase before it, which we're gonna talk about, is our winter phase, meaning that is when we were bleeding, okay? So when we just stopped bleeding, we are coming into the follicular phase. It's spring, we're getting our energy back, our hormones are rising, we tend to feel a little bit more like ourselves. After this phase, we go into our ovulatory phase. This phase is pretty short, which kind of sucks sometimes because it's usually the phase that we feel like the most energy in. Now in the book, it says it lasts around 3 to 4 days, but I do find for myself personally, the follicular into the ovulation, I do tend to feel around the same. So like I do have a lot of energy. It's not just like 3 days out of the month I only have a good amount of energy. This is also the time where you are more than likely to get pregnant, so be careful if you are not using protection. Phase 3. This is the longest phase and is called the luteal phase. This lasts anywhere from 10 to 14 days. We can call this phase fall. And I think this is where we really start to tap into our bodies around this phase. I find 10 days out of my period, my mood switches, but usually the second half, because this is a long phase, right? The second half of my luteal phase, moving into the menstrual, that's where I tend to have a lot of PMS symptoms. That's where most people will feel the PMS symptoms. So you might not feel it in like the first half of this phase because you're really just like, you know, coming down from the ovulation phase, and I tend to still have that energy. But it's that second half of that phase where, okay, I'm feeling like I'm coming into myself, things are slowing down, my energy is draining a little bit. And then you move into your menstrual phase. This is a phase that you guys all know. This is where you bleed. It can last anywhere from 3 to 7 days. Obviously, y'all know it completely depends. And this is our winter phase, meaning we are coming into ourselves. We literally are like pretty depleted. Energy is low. We need to support ourselves a lot. So knowing that you move through different phases out of the month, every single month, your body is really going to require you to do working out, eating, socializing, everything in different ways. When you have more energy, hormonally, you're gonna be able to take on more tasks. You're gonna have more energy to be able to do a heavy, hard workout. You're gonna have more energetic battery to be able to go socialize with friends. But on the flip side, when you're menstruating, when your body is literally depleted of its nutrients, you're not gonna have that much energy to do that heavy workout, or you might not be super motivated to go socialize with friends. You might have symptoms arise because your body is a little bit out of balance. This is not a bad thing. It just means, okay, how can I set up my weeks and my months to really support my body? And this is what I believe has literally changed the game for me. When I know I'm moving through a certain phase in my life, I can switch into a certain mindset of a more self-loving, more nurturing. I can switch into new habits that are gonna support my energy levels. And the more times that I do this, the more I am not depleting myself. And the times that I have the most energy, I'm really able to capitalize on my spring and summer season. I'm able to, you know, go out in life and be really social and get a lot of work done and get all of my hard workouts in, all of that stuff. So when it's time to rest, I've already done this stuff over here. I don't feel guilty about not doing these things over here because I know my body needs to rest, and I'm coming back to that anyways, so I'm not losing anything. And this is coming back to the living the linear thing. I think a lot of women really struggle with this because it's like, well, I don't want to not do my hard workout because I need to do it because like I need my goals. You are not losing anything by bringing your energy towards yourself in the times where it's more that winter, that fall season. So I want to talk about fitness, diet, and productivity depending on which phase that you are in. This is again very textbook, and then I'm going to talk about like some of my personal examples. So when you're in the follicular phase, the types of exercises that are supportive of this phase would be more lighter cardio exercises like running, biking, swimming. During your ovulation phase, this is where you can tap into more of those high intensity, sweaty workouts. So like the HIIT workouts, spin classes, step climbing, you can do Stairmasters, like really, really hard, more intense workouts. Again, coming back to the fact that we're in our summer season, we have our hormones are at peak energy here. We have as much energy as we probably will all freaking month. So this is the time to do those workouts. When we move into the luteal phase, our fall phase, this is where we can tap more into strength training, because strength training, yes, it can be very hard, but it's not the same as doing like a high intensity workout. So you can tap into strength training, ab workouts, Pilates, reformers, things of that nature. And then moving into your menstrual phase, this is very much so focusing on low impact movement, like gentle yoga, stretching, walking, things that are not going to tax the body, because again, when you're bleeding, you are very depleted. So for us to do a HIIT workout doesn't mean you can't do it, but is it going to be supportive of your hormones? Maybe not. So let's go into things that you could focus on in each phase in terms of foods. And I'm just gonna be like very quick with this one because you could like look up all of the foods that would be supportive. But let's go to the follicular phase, which is again your spring phase. You're just coming out of your bleed. So here you could go for lighter vegetables, leaner proteins, fermented foods. During your ovulation phase, you can go for cooling foods like salads and smoothies and quinoa and fruit. And I find when they say things like going for more raw vegetables and fruits around this time is because it has been shown that our digestive fire will be a little bit more able to be able to break down more foods that are more raw instead of cooked foods. Also, we don't need cooked foods too much to like soothe our stomachs because maybe we're not cramping, we're not like depleted in a lot of nutrients. So we don't want to take a lot of energy resources out of our bodies during, let's say, our bleed. So that's why they'll say like have more cooked foods when you're menstruating, but like more raw vegetables, obviously, when you are in your ovulation phase. Your luteal phase can be slow burning carbs and higher fiber foods. This is also to prepare your body also to go into menstrual phase. And then during your menstrual phase, you know, opt for cozy, easy to digest stews. Like I said, your body, you want to support it as it's going through the fact that you are bleeding and your hormones are low. So just taking off that digestive tax that sometimes happens when you eat a lot of foods that do require a lot of breakdown. And honestly, like it completely depends because there's so many other things that play a role in what you would be eating and why you'd be eating them. So I don't hyper focus too much on like food per se. I do a little bit of support, but not too much. And let's go to productivity with your cycles. So let's go back to follicular, which is your springtime. The emphasis here would be doing more focused work, creative work, or learning. This is a great time to research online courses or writing. So again, just thinking about how your energy would be coming back to be able to put a little bit more time and attention and focus in on tasks. Your ovulation phase could be about engaging in more group work, attending conferences or networking events, doing interviews, having harder conversations. Again, this is where your social battery is probably going to be the most charged. Moving into your luteal phase, they say to avoid new projects or big launches, which would kind of make sense because, you know, you're going into the fall phase, your energy is slowly getting depleted. For you to take on something big and new can be a little bit out of alignment for this phase. You could focus on the mundane or repetitive things that need to be done, like organizing files or updating reports, just doing things that don't take a lot of energy out of you. And when you're going into your menstrual phase, they say focusing on analytical tasks, which I find when you are in your menstrual phase, there's something within you as you start to cycle sync, and I just like get strong for me every single time. There's this innate connection to your wisdom, your intuition. You can just see things very clearly. So I'm not surprised that they do say focus on analytical tasks. This is a great time to do solo projects, proofreading, reviewing data, assessments, goal setting, like very much so introspection, very much so dialed in. There's just something so beautiful about the energy that you can tap into while you're on your bleed. So let's talk about the steps that I take when it comes to planning out my month around my period. The first thing is I need to track my period. So I use the Flow app, which I'll have linked down below. And yes, I know I've heard the data here and there and everywhere, and this app holds data and this, that. If you don't want to use an app to track, then maybe get the book, because I'm pretty sure the book teaches you how to track a different way, but I use an app. So that's just the thing that I've always done, and it helps me. So I'm always able to see when I am going to get my period, but I also just intuitively know from the way that my mood will switch, the way that my energy dips, the way that I feel a certain cramp right before that I'm about to have my period, the way that I have an energy dip and then it comes back up and then it drops. Like, again, like learning about your cycle takes a long time, but knowing when it is that you are about to bleed, meaning when you're gonna be in your menstrual phase, can really help you be able to plan your week. So I wanted to give you guys some practical examples. So I'm just gonna show you like my calendar here and then kind of how I plan things. So I mean, right now is the 18th and I'm about to actually get my period on the 20th. But for this example, I'm just gonna go to my next period, which will start on the 17th and then run through here. And also the thing that I like about this app is it will tell you like in blue when you're ovulating, and then obviously when you're just in your luteal phase, which is this long, and then obviously you're in your bleed and then you go back. And honestly, I don't really use this app too much. Like I don't really put in like all of my symptoms and log them and stuff, but you obviously can. Like it will tell you period in 2 days. Like every time I open this, it will tell me, although I don't really need to, but this is just like helpful for you if you have different symptoms, you can like ask it questions and stuff. So when I look at a month and I see that I'm about to get my period on the 17th, the main thing I focus on is basically like the week before and the week during when it comes to planning out my weeks, because these are the most impactful weeks for me personally. And it might not be for you, but for me, the second week of the luteal, so the 12, 13, right here, this is where my energy dips, my mood, I'm honestly kind of irritated around this time. I don't really have a lot of motivation to start something new. I very much so want to take as much things off of my plate as possible, but especially when I am bleeding. Like honestly, for me, it's just the first 2 days of my period. The rest, I kind of like start to get the energy back and I'm not like bleeding like crazy. So again, this is it's so unique to everyone, but obviously tracking your period over time, you're gonna know. So like the 17th, 18th, 19th, I'm making sure on my calendar that I am not, if I can possibly avoid it, I am not going to put a lot on my plate on 17, 18, and 19. So obviously my calendar is not filled out and I don't pre-fill out my calendars like crazy. Like obviously I can't plan my entire life just around my period, but also just in general. But I make sure that I'm underlining these days so that way when it's time to plan my weeks, I can say, all right, well, if out of the entire month, my friends want to do something like go out or like have a get together or drinks at a patio or something, which we're not doing because it's February. But let's say they wanted to do that. Because I know, well, I'm going to be bleeding these days and what my body needs is most likely not alcohol and most likely a lot of rest and a lot of sleep, because I know that about my body, I am going to make sure that we maybe do something on the 9th. Or the 10th, or maybe on the 23rd or the 24th. Or let's say my friend wants to do a Saturday morning spin class. Personally, for me, I don't tend to usually do those type of classes because I think that it's a pretty hard like hit workout, which is totally fine. It's a great workout. But what I'm not gonna do is plan it on the 17th, the 18th, and maybe the 19th. Like, I think I'll be okay on that day to do it. But like, you know what I mean? Just knowing where it is that you are on your cycle can be very helpful for when you want to start planning things out. Now let's actually just go back to like this month right now. So before I'm in my last week of my luteal phase, like moving into when I bleed, I really try to optimize and maximize my productivity activity in the first week of the luteal and like where I am with my ovulation also into the follicular, which is like here, and then you track it back to like the last period. So making sure that I'm recording YouTube videos, podcast episodes, I'm coming up with creative ideas. Again, I'm doing my best to, if I am doing any sort of events, like I'm gonna capitalize on this time here. I'm gonna do those heavy workouts, those HIIT workouts if I really want to. And as my body falls into the fall time, I am around this time, right before my period, I'm doing my last leg days because I know I'm not doing a leg day on the first, the second, like, or the third day because I'm just not gonna have a lot of energy. But because I still wanna hit my goals, I'm just gonna make sure, okay, the leg day over here, it's not gonna be like the easiest because my energy is still dipping, but my energy is gonna be way worse. Not way worse, I shouldn't say that, but like more low, and I'm probably gonna be cramping that I am not gonna wanna do a leg day and do like hip thrusts and stuff, and nor does my body really need it. So I always make sure to know when it is obviously gonna bleed and make sure that I'm planning my last leg day around these times, either today or like tomorrow. And then tomorrow I'm actually gonna do a Pilates class, and then I'll be able to rest on this day and probably this day, which I'll feel okay about doing because I did my workout, I did my Pilates. Naturally, my body needs a rest day anyways from the workouts. But what I can do around these days, which my body needs more of, is stretching, is walking, is whatever, you know what I mean? And then obviously as my period goes away more, I can add back in those leg days and those Pilates classes. Now, when it comes to eating for my cycle, I don't tend to see very big changes in my appetite other than my last week of my luteal phase, where I do tend to feel a little bit more of those cravings. And honestly, it's more when my mood and my irritation is like, you know, all over the place. I will tend to want to gravitate towards sugary processed foods to help soothe myself and my mood that I'm in. It's actually a lot of the times not even the fact that biologically my body is craving certain things. It's usually like a mood thing for me personally. And then when I am on my period, I do tend to feel a little bit more hungry. And so around those times, I will focus on red meat. I'm also somebody who eats animal products, so I eat a lot of steak always anyways, but I'll eat a lot of steak around this time. I'll eat a lot of ground beef, and I'll roast sweet potatoes. I'll make some rice. I actually just meal prepped a lot of meals. I did ground beef and spinach, so iron in that, rice, sweet potato, just like very warming foods, things that will be readily available and prepared for me so that when I am hungry, I'm eating and I'm not just like ordering out and I'm just like not supporting myself that way. But obviously those nutrients do help. Another thing that I do when it comes to my personal symptoms is I tend to supplement with magnesium. Magnesium has been shown to really help with menstrual cramps, but also with sleep. But I think the biggest thing for me is when I'm about to get onto my period, I for sure am way more exhausted. Like I feel it. I am just more depleted. I need more sleep. And even during the days, like I just need more naps. And when I can, I give myself the rest. I do not get upset with myself because I need that rest. Now, I want to talk just about a few more things because I wasn't always a content creator and I didn't always like plan my weeks and like be able to like just push off like doing a video and like do it next week when I have more energy type of thing. Like I worked as a bartender and a server. I also was doing a corporate wellness position at the same time, and I was building my freaking social media. So like I know what it means to have a more like traditional corporate job and not be able to like cycle sync and like be this like soft girly and just like always like nurture yourself, like whatever. And the thing that helped me the most was obviously tracking and just knowing my body and like being very aware of when my mood would switch or when my cravings would come, or you know, when my cramps would be like really, really bad. And then coming in those moments to be able to support myself the best way I could. So maybe if my entire week of my period, I wasn't able to get in naps every single day because like I had to work freaking 2-3 jobs, I would try my best to put one thing like off of my plate or skip a very heavy workout and allow myself to sleep in for another hour before I had to go to work. Or, you know, if I came home a little bit early, instead of going out and like partying with my friends or like going out for dinners or whatever, which is so fun and I can do that, I decided I'm gonna stay in and I'm gonna rest because I know that my body needs it. Also, around my period, that is definitely when I like to do a lot of reflection journaling. So just reflecting on the month, reflecting on whatever I'm feeling internally, you know, allowing whatever needs to flow out of me, the wisdom that is within me, I let that flow out and really take that time to like come into myself, especially if I was really busy that I didn't have the time to like always do a journal practice, because again, I know not everyone can always do a journal practice, or not everyone can always like take a bath or like do an everything shower or like do these like crazy routines every single day. And I don't think that is actually even needed, because again, I think that we're cyclical and there's just going to be times where we need to lean more on self-care. We need to lean more on nurturing and loving ourselves. And sometimes it's not really like that needed. Like when I am like ovulating, I'm not really thinking about cycle syncing. I'm not like, I have energy. I know that it's time to go. I know that like, even if I have a schedule in which, you know, my Mondays and my Thursdays, I'm recording my podcast episodes, during the week of my follicular into my ovulation and even into like the first week of luteal, if I have energy at any point during those weeks outside of the 2 that I already got done, I'm doing another one. I'm doing another one because I know that there's going to be a week or 2 out of the month that I am not going to have as much energy, and I want to set myself up for success. I want to take as much burden off of my body and my mind that I need so I can operate the way that I'm supposed to. And even if I do have some energy while I'm menstruating and I want to record, I'll do it, but it's not from this place of, oh my God, I have to because I have no other option. Again, I know some people don't have any option and you have to work. I don't think that you need to look at it as, oh my God, see, I can't cycle sync and I can't like embrace being a woman because I have to work. It's not about that. It's what are you telling yourself about your energy levels when you wake up in the morning and you got to go to a 9 to 5? Like, are you beating yourself up because you don't have a lot of energy today, or you're not in the best mood? Are you being like really tough on yourself? Are you drinking caffeine first thing in the morning and then, you know, grabbing a freaking sugary donut or this bagel that has no nutrients in it, especially when you're on your period and you're going to work and you're wondering why you're freaking stressed and why you're not in a good mood? Like, are you supporting yourself through those pockets of times, through your meals, through your sleep, through what you're consuming online? All of these things. Nourish yourself. And even when it comes to like skin, right now, actually, I have a breakout here. This is most likely because I am just about to get my period, and sometimes I get them and sometimes I don't, but in those times, I'm not like super mad at my body or mad at myself because I'm breaking out, or I'm not thinking like, oh my God, like my progress is lost, or like, oh my God, like life is over. Or, and this is so funny, and I want you guys to comment down below and tell me if this happens to you, especially if you cycle sync and you know when you're about to get your period. 10 days out of your period, when your luteal phase starts, it's like your mood completely switches. It switches for me. It's like this light switch goes on and everything is irritating, and it's like the most annoying, frustrating thing. And a lot of you guys have told me like you experience the same thing, like 10 days out, you check and it's like 10 days out. So because I know that though, and I know it's my luteal phase, and I know that I'm like, you know, the hormones are dipping, it makes perfect sense why I'm literally not in the best mood right now. I don't like look at it like I'm like failing, or it's a big thing to worry about, or oh my God, like, yeah, just like something is wrong, because it's like not like, it's almost like a normal thing. Now, this is what I'm also gonna say when it comes to like symptoms though. If you have really severe mood swings, or really bad cramps, or really heavy periods, or really bad acne, I'm not even gonna here to say that that is technically a normal thing. It just means that your body is responding though to a hormonal fluctuation, in which I personally believe the more you learn to cycle sync, the more you learn to look at the root cause of these things, and you try your best to support yourself through diet, fitness, movement, mindset, over time, your body will respond. And I know this to be true because I used to have really bad breakouts before every single period. All the time I would always break out over here. Like this pimple, I haven't had a pimple in like so many months. Like I barely even break out, but in general, when it comes to like right around my period, I don't get those anymore. I don't get like really bad cramps to the point where I have to take a bunch of Advil. I still get cramps, but I don't get them as much. And even when it comes to my mood swings, I'm able to also just like handle them better, but I also don't get them as frequently, like as much, or cravings as much. You know why? because I'm supporting myself on a monthly basis by moving my body in the ways that I know that I need to. I'm resting more. I'm lowering my internal stress. I'm loving myself more. I'm being more kinder to myself. I am nourishing my body with foods that are just like, it's outside of like following the guidelines of cycle syncing. It's just like, I'm focusing on protein. I'm focusing on fueling myself. I'm focusing on eating freaking breakfast before I spike my cortisol even more in the morning with coffee first thing. Like, why are we doing those things to our bodies? Why? Because we're so disconnected. We have learned for so many years to deny our needs, and it stops now. It stops freaking now. And when I focus on cycle syncing as a part of really like embracing womanhood and loving on myself, oh my God, everything changed for me again, because like, you're looking at yourself like somebody to be loved, somebody to be poured into, somebody to stop ignoring. And unfortunately, we've learned over years, many years as women, but in general, like society, we've learned how to completely disown and reject and deny our needs. We don't even listen to our bodies. Our bodies are speaking to ourselves all the time. When we get anxious, when we get depressed, when we get symptoms, all we do is mask it. We just ignore it. Oh, let's throw birth control on it. Let's just screw it. I don't care. Or we'll get mad at ourselves and we wonder why we're broken. We're not broken. We just need to listen. And I'm actually just thinking about something right now. I was on TikTok, and this kind of infuriated me from a way of like, I just wish we weren't so far away from this, but I get it wasn't this girl's fault. And like, I at one point would have probably thought that this was something cool to try. This girl on TikTok, and this video was viral, and I'm sure you've heard about different ways to do this. She was about to get her period on a weekend of her like anniversary, I think it maybe was, with her boyfriend. So obviously they wanted to have sex. She didn't want to have her period though. And I guess they just didn't want to have sex while she was on her period, which totally understandable. Like, that's not like, I personally don't think is the most enjoyable thing. But I guess she wasn't on birth control, but she had searched up, and I guess it was going around on TikTok somewhere, that you can take this like concoction of Advil, like I think it was like 3 or like 6 Advil, and you like crush it up and you mix it with like this Jello, and you mix it with something else. I'm not really sure. I'm not too sure, but it was like Advil and like Jello and like something, and you drink it and then it prolongs your period. And I know you've probably heard this where people like just take your like, I don't know, girls like take their birth control like extra or like something, and it like pushes off their period and you can skip it, whatever. And it's so freaking normalized to do that. And I'm sitting here looking at this thing. It's like, where have we gone? Where have we literally gone that it's okay and normal to like come up with this concoction to just suppress our 5th vital sign? Our periods are our vital signs as women. Like, it infuriates me. And it infuriates me because like I used to live like that too. Like, birth control, my period doesn't mean anything. It's irrelevant. It's annoying. It's actually something that's very inconvenient in my life, and I don't want it. And like, let me take Advil to mask the symptoms. Let me do more birth control to just get rid of the acne, this, that. And I get it, because it's so hard to understand our periods. It's so hard to balance hormones in general, but take it, I guess, from somebody who's gone through a lot of learning when it comes to holistic health, hormones. I've had to work on a lot of gut health issues, a lot of chronic inflammation, and a lot of mental stress. Reducing your overall stress and listening to what your body needs, which can be very hard, but it can be done. You will see over time your body will heal. Your body is very capable of healing things that you had no idea it could heal from. And I just know that to be true because that's what's been true for me. My literal energy levels, my vitality, my mood, my hair, my skin, my muscle, my happiness has completely transformed based off of not just cycle syncing, but an aspect of loving myself and nurturing myself and slowing down and like looking at the root. A part of it is cycle syncing, understand like, oh, it makes so much sense why like I need to slow down this week, or like, oh, it makes so much sense that I have more energy this week, so like maybe I'm gonna socialize here, and like no wonder everyone's like super magnetized to me during this time because I have so much energy, but like maybe not so much this time because like I'm freaking depleted. I don't need to be mad at myself because I don't have the energy. It's not about that. It's just about knowing myself and my unique needs. Okay, sorry, my camera just died, so I'm just like charging it here, and I'm in the podcast studio. If you guys don't know, I have a podcast, the Globe Secrets podcast. on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple if you want to hear me talk more. But I think that's really it. So to sum everything up, if you want to plan your life around your cycle, I think the first thing is to really embrace that, you know what? Yeah, I'm unique and I'm different. This is in relation biologically to males, but also in general, you're just a unique person, right? Like the symptoms that I have, you might not have, meaning you're gonna maybe have to support yourself in a way that I don't necessarily have to right now. Like, so just understanding that you're very unique, and the process of life really is getting to know yourself. So understanding that, but also if you want to plan your workouts to support yourself when it comes to sleep, or when it comes to movement, or when it comes to diet and even mindset, just like loving on yourself a little bit more, maybe like more affirmations, love, whatever, it is beneficial for you to obviously know when it is that you are moving through these phases. If you have a regular period, I would just suggest get the book anyways, because some of the tips in that book can help you try and figure out why it is that you have an irregular period. It's probably a lot of things, biopsychosocial, hormones might be unbalanced, you might have a lot of environmental stressors around you, the foods that you're eating, obviously, the mindset that you're having, the people that you're moving around, everything is very holistic. It's my opinion. When I change that, a lot of things change, especially my cycle. Also, if you're on birth control, still get that book. I think it's very, very valuable. Also check out that movie. And if you do know your cycle, looking at a calendar view, making sure you set out those days where you are going to be bleeding, and then do your best when it comes to whatever type of work that you have. When it comes to around when you're bleeding, okay, can I, add a nap or two into here? Or maybe can I move this HIIT workout that's like very strenuous over here, because I actually tend to know that I don't have that much energy. Or if I know I have a lot of cravings, how can I find healthier alternatives or things that might curb the craving, but I still feel like satiated? Maybe getting some dark chocolate and almonds instead of like going to the store and getting freaking 10 Twix bars that like literally just spike your blood sugar and then make you crash. Like things like that. Knowing your body and doing your best to move your schedule a little bit around. This doesn't mean that you can't work. It does not mean y'all can't do what you need to do in life and get things done. I very much so get things done. And let's bring it back to what I said about living cyclically. When you maximize on the times that you know you have the most energy, the most social, like oomph, like whatever, the magnetizing energy that you have, or even when you're coming out of that death and you're coming into that rebirth again, understand that that is your power and use it. Capitalize it, do something with that energy, do something with your life around that time, and understand, okay, when it's time for me to come back into myself, whether that be you're bleeding or like frick, your life is just a freaking mess right now and you're going into the dumps, don't resist it. Do the best you can not to resist it. Bringing it back to what I told my friend, the only thing that you need to do when you realize you're emotionally drained or you're physically exhausted is to not try and fix it, not try and find the next modality to get you back up quickly. I understand that we live a life where it requires us to work, it requires us to go, I get it. But there are pockets in your life, in your time, where I know you can find a way to slow down, and if anything, to speak to yourself in a more loving and kind way. So I think that's it. Track your freaking period, get the book if you need to, look at your weeks and say, when am I more energized? When am I more depleted? What do I need in those moments? How can I support myself? And if you still have energy when you're on your period, then you ain't gotta do anything. Understand that you're very unique. And also, I was thinking about doing like a part 2 video on more resources, more like period products that I use that are really helpful, that I've transitioned from the way that I used to like use period products, like what I use now, different like tips and tricks and any sort of resources that have helped me when it comes to cycle syncing. I can totally do an updated video, so definitely let me know if you want that. Everything that I mentioned will be in the description below. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!